Buongiorno, buongiorno, signore e signori, finalmente posso dichiarare l'amore. Ma no, questo dia non è il dia dove posso dichiarare la poesia nel mio cuore. But, but, besides that, besides me just going off on in Italian randomly, um, uh, for today, agile, okay, no worries. Um, wait, what is going on? Why is it? Yeah, there we go. Okay. Hello, Moanope. It's so good to see you. So, for today, I was not expecting to stream today at all. I instead was going to kind of take another day of break, but I was like, I kind of feel like streaming. But yeah, I'm kind of a little bit concerned as to why like this somehow doesn't have the like old or oh, I think I know what it is. It's because I made it too small. That must be why. There we go. Now it all makes sense. Yay. So as I was saying, I haven't been feeling very good at all. Like I've just been having like headaches and headache after headache. I just wake up with one, I go to sleep with one. It's not great. It's obviously not great, but I thought I would try to stream today, even if only just slightly, just to try to because I've missed all of you. I feel like it's been quite a while, and the premieres are great. I like them, but it's not the same, right? Because I'm not responding, like in the moment, right? It's a little bit delayed, right? But I did want to talk about some things. Nothing really. I did want to talk about. Yeah, right, exactly. And especially because like this last operation, I mean, I told you Phoenix Dragon, and I think that, like because that's as far as I'm willing to go, but like it's just really, drained me because of that. And so I'm just trying to like, but besides that, there's obviously been a lot of stuff going on. I did see that there was a new. Also, I hope you like the intro music because, so I know that I think the streamer's name is Denims or something like that. They had like a whole week or a whole something, like a long time where they were just playing that song every day, and people would just like give her a whole bunch of money or like whatever, like they would subscribe or give her bits or whatever. But it was funny because I actually remember when I was watching the Mexican news, like from Mexico, and they talked about this song like a long time ago, and I was all like, oh wow, so like now even Twitch streamers are talking about it, are using it in there. So I thought, okay, I'll finally use Pedro. But anyway, I only know about it because one day, how like it has like your suggested, right? Like, and it always suggests me like or like, no, it's less than, it's too few that it recommends. Like 3 really, really huge streamers that I've like, like Hassan or something, and then it'll recommend me like people that I've, have never really heard of at all. But I just remember that because of the song. Hello, Soul Life. Welcome in. Yeah, I've never heard any of her like positions, if that makes sense, right? Like I don't know what she thinks about this or that thing. So, that's that, right? So So, what I wanted to start with today is talking about. I was thinking we could maybe go over some of the more like serious stuff first. And oh my goodness. We talk about how I wish I was pink for streams. I think I missed a few. Also, hi everyone, just flaunting my points. Oh my gosh. We Yeah, no, like that was one of the things like with my YouTube oh, thank you. Yeah, I hope you're having a good day too. Yeah, that was like one of the things where I really wanted to make sure that my YouTube premieres were being pinged to everybody, because for some reason in my mind I kept thinking that they weren't, so because especially because now I've started to just like unlock all of the like YouTube content that I have, so then that way like people for example yourself, Holy Lazy Duck, that has like like if you want to revisit an old VOD that talks about some such thing, you can do so. But I thought that we would start by talking about like the more serious subject first, just so that way then we could kind of move on to something else afterwards. But I did really want to talk about the Lehi, because they are. I remember when BCAT K used to chat us. I mean, also, so I did see a little bit of this, but I did find it funny how like when they show Palestine, they do the same thing like when they show Mexico, right? Where they make everything look like right now, right? They give it that like tint of like orange, brown, like that sepia, like not sepia, but it's just this like, I'm like this could literally, yeah, exactly, right? And it's just like, why do you do this? But yeah, by the way, like what you're looking at. Hi, Felefenefe. Hi, Powerful Finger. Welcome in. The dingy 70s look of photography. Oh yeah. So what we're looking at right now is the old city of Jerusalem, which is tiny. I mean, it is super super compact. That's why you have all of these like medieval passageways, and like people like above this arc right here, like this like tunnel you see. There are like apartments up here, right? And everything, right? Like there are like, and this is all stone from the quarries just to the east of the old city of Jerusalem, right? And the walls that make it the walled city of Jerusalem, right, go back from like first temple times. You can find stuff. Second temple times you can find stuff. Roman times, right? It's been built up, and the walls, most of the walls that we see now come from like medieval and then Ottoman times. Jesus would not be happy. Well, it's funny you say that, because I know I mentioned this in the what's it called, the in the premiere yesterday. I love West Asian bazaars. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I totally get that. I mean, like in Skopje, we had one from the Ottoman era. Oh, nice, very nice. Yeah, like when I was in Syria and Jordan, right? Like, in fact, I brought up being in Syria yesterday because there were people in Irene's chat that were like, "Oh, like, what does it matter? Like Trump never had any wars." And I'm like, 2017, I was in Damascus when Trump authorized a drone strike in Damascus, and it was like, I was right there, bro. Like, I was literally right there. Like, don't tell me, oh, Trump never had any wars. Like, I was almost a casualty. Okay. But it is open, unlike Turkey's Kapili Karsi. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, like that's one of the things that I've always liked about the kinds of because like in Mexico we have like covered markets. In fact, the largest market like that in the world, pardon me, in the Americas is in Guadalajara, Mexico, and it's kind of, I mean, it's obviously not going to be exactly like that, but it's very similar, right? In that it's covered, right, and it's multiple stories, but it was built with more like modernist architecture, right? But if you go to some of the more traditional ones, like in Mexico City, right, it's in this more like colonial, right, like, and it kind of has that like Moorish, as they would have said back then, right, type of architecture as well, with that more influence, right, with like little courtyards for the sellers and buyers to, etc. But the one that I remember going to, the souk in Dimashq, that one was beautiful because that one goes back. That one has been built up since Umayyad times, right? So it started off like four sections, and now it's like 39 sections, right? And each sections have been added on over time, and it's all internal, right? And it's very nice, and also because it gets very hot, right? Like when you're in there, and oh my gosh, I remember too, even in Jordan, that the one I went to there in Amman, they had what is often called limonana, right? Or I mean, it can be called that. It doesn't have to be called that, but it's like lemonade. It's like mint lemonade, right? Because it's the double cooling effect, right? But yeah, I just remember that. But yes. But yeah, so right here you see a lot of like vendors and everything, and it kind of makes me think of like if you go to like the historic center of Mexico City, it kind of reminds me of this because there are a lot of places that I mean, it was built, it started being built since 1521, right? The problem is the bazaar changing with time. Like many old trades are dead. Oh, yes, yeah. See, that's the same thing in Mexico too, right? Where it's like before you would have people that were like that they would have like the hand printers, right? Or that they would or you would have like lots of more different varieties of restaurants than you do now, like in the part of Mexico City where my grandparents lived. They like back in the day was like the little market, the covered market, had like a whole bunch of different families serving different types of food. Now it's like less families, and they serve like more like common type of stuff, right? Because there's not that much diversity of the tastes anymore. Like with many old trades are dead, like people who fix shoes, yeah, cobblers or so, yeah, tailors and such, because we just buy new and a few exist who do custom shoes or clothing, and they are bought very expensive, so they justify money fixing. Yeah, that's true. I still fix my clothes for the example of my local tailor or sewist, as you say, but we barely have two in the whole city. That's so the one thing that Mexico does still have, at least again in my own experience, is leather work. Like that you still find in Mexico. But that's because again, like we have a whole part of the country that's like has been ranching since 1521 ostensibly, right? Oh, good. Oh, I'm so glad that you're working with the commands. Wait, it's saying, oh, blank said hi. Oh my gosh. But yeah, as like I feel like in Mexico there's a lot more of that still going on, especially if you go to places that aren't like the major cities, right? Like if you go, in fact, if you go to a place like the capital of the state of Guanajuato, which is called Guanajuato, it feels more like a medieval city because they weren't able to build it in the like square pattern of streets, right? So it's all, the Zara HM effect. Yeah. Like that's why I'm saying, like, that isn't, I'm not going to say it's not there, right? Because I will say it's definitely there. But like, if you go to, again, like the proletarian neighborhoods, you're going to find more of like this. But I mean, because this is still a big thing in Mexico, right? Like, in fact, people, and I would say in many cases, prefer this, to the point where even here in LA, the swap meets are like essentially where the Mexican community and the Latinx community in general tends to set up shop, and they sell clothes and they sell all sorts of stuff, right? So again, because also like when you go buy fruit, like at these markets, right, like they have everything, right? So like my grandparents would buy cheese from a particular person, meat from a particular, right? Like everybody knew who to go to, right? Everyone had their preferred. And in the old city of Jerusalem, you still have this. The issue, though, is that the Israelis have been buying up or outright stealing property. I don't think I have to, 0 Latins were consulted over the creation of the word Latinx. I mean, if you mean in the sense of like Latini, as in the people that live in the Lazio area of Italy, I suppose not. But neither were Latin Americans consulted, so to speak, when they were first called Latin Americans. It was the French that called them Amérique Latine. So,
Hi, welcome. Amani.
Well, no, the X is just there as a way to symbolize the fact that it can represent anything, right? Right, like the fact that, because like oftentimes I will write it like Latine with the E. That's how, but Latinx is seen as more inclusive because it it can stand there for many things, right? Like it can be inclusive of all three at once or any individual one. Yeah. Yeah, like I use Latine, but I also, use Latinx. But again, Latinx is not used in Latin America, right? Like these terms are not for Latin America. They're used for like Latino, right? That concept is people from Latin America and their descendants in the United States, in diaspora only. It's not for people from Latin America. Those are Latin Americans, right? So that's where like a lot of this, like people saying, oh, shouldn't it be according to the blah blah blah? No, because like in Mexico, right? Like we would say the phrase Mexicanes, right? With an E, because that works in Spanish, right? But it's in the United States that many people, queer theorists and people from the different colonized diaspora groups, right? Pardon me, the colonized national groups of Chicanos, right? Puerto Ricans and Cubans, in particular, have taken to using that term to allow for, right, any type of expression possible, right? So Latin sometimes, sometimes, yeah. There are some people. Because there are some people that like don't seem Latino, whatever that even means. That are. My grandfather used to travel by train 80 kilometers one way at the biggest cheese farmers market when it existed before the 90s, and he was buying giant 20-pound buckets. Oh my gosh, that makes me think of my grandfather so much, because I think I've explained before, right? My grandfather was a kosher butcher. So that meant that like growing up, I was used to like, hey, my grandparents have like chickens and stuff, right? And like, oh, why is some guy like, calling my, well, not some guy, it was actually my uncle, but, or my great uncle, but it's like, why is this guy who at the time I had not really like spent time with before, um, because he lived far away in Mexico. Why are we gonna go, do? And it was because he's not a shochet, but he had, I forget what he had, but he needed it to be done with a kosher butcher, and obviously he would rather give my grandfather some of the meat, right, than pay for some, because kosher meat tends to be very expensive. I used to make homemade pretzels and carrot juice from the. Oh, I used to get circa Y2K. Oh my gosh. Oh, I love carrot juice. In fact, like waiting in La Linea, as it's called, or waiting to cross the border into the United States, which takes about 3 to 4 hours, but sometimes they can take up as much as 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours. I mean, they sell everything, right? They sell coffee, they sell orange juice, they sell carrot juice, like everything, like, and they will deliver it right to your, Oh my gosh, I used to grow carrots when in my parents' back garden, and they were like organic carrots, which in Mexico is just carrots, but um, like they were literally like heirloom varieties. I didn't even know that there were like GMO varieties until I like was like told like, oh yeah, by the way, in America, the Monsanto ones are kind of weird. They like, oh, grow once and then they never grow again. But anyway, I'm just joking about that. But but the point being that yeah, like my grandfather loved juicing, because that was another thing, is like Jewish people in Mexico for a long time were not allowed to do many types of jobs, right? Like, even though the revolution supposedly secularized society, right, it didn't, like the anti-Semitism didn't go away. I mean, there were there were the brown shirts, right? There were the black shirts, okay? In Mexico, there were the gold shirts. Not even joking. So, you know what I mean? Like, and this was obviously at the same time. So, because of that, it was always a bit of a, like the types of jobs Jewish people could hold. Again, if you're not, already coming from a family that has, familial wealth, for example, tended to be like in the business of selling, or, stuff like that. Like essentially being, doing something like owning a store, right? The abarrotes, which is very typical. He was traveling that far because the area had a lot of shepherds. You could find giant buckets of cow cheese locally. Ah, I see. I see. Yeah, like that's very similar to like my grandfather. Like you can taste the difference, and the difference is so apparent in the cheese that my grandfather would go see the production of, because when he actually designed and built the like things, I don't want to say stables, I don't know why that's coming to mind, but like for a kosher dairy, right? Like for the stalls, because it has to be like kosher, anything has to be far more cleanly than, and so because of that, like he would because there's another job that like Jewish men who are very religious can do, which is a mashgiach, which is like a kosher supervisor, right? And usually people pay these people, right, to supervise, to make sure that nothing gets contaminated or cross contaminated. So usually, like in a place like Mexico, like especially not in a major city, a lot of times they'll be like, hey, you have your salary, but if you want to take some cheese, you can take some cheese. And so like tasting that cheese, that very distinct cotija cheese, I cannot tell you how good it tastes. Like, it is unique. Like, yes, you can buy cotija cheese from El Mexicano, which is a brand here in America, but no, the one that's from over there, oh no, it's completely unique. But we never bought a lot of cheese during the summer because it can spoil unless you have cold storage. We usually buy in late November and eat it until late February. Ah, okay. So, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Carrot juice is magic. Carrot juice. Oh my gosh. Steve Urkel loved cheese too. Yes.
Waiting for you.
Although I will say something, and I apologize. I know I just completely just tangent, but my family does have the tradition, I guess, if I could even call it that, of eating ice cream only in wintertime, like whenever it's cold. So very similar to what your family does during from November to February, is like that's the only time we would eat ice cream.
Come.
You let me.
My name is Yair Stern. I'm the son of Abraham Stern Elias Yair, the founder and first commander of Lehi, an underground movement that fought the British here in Israel during the 1940s. He was killed at the age of 34 by the British in cold blood murder.
So what we need to remember, and to give you some quick background of the Stern gang, right? That is the name of the group called Lehi, right? And they were considered the most radical of the. Again, I mean, it's weird to say it like that because both the Haganah, the Irgun, and the Lehi were considered tourism organizations, right? To put it lightly, to put it like that, right? They were very much engaged in tourism, right, against the British and the Palestinians, and they all committed acts of tourism, right? But in this case, the Lehi was particularly known because of the fact that they actively sought an alliance, and I am not joking, with the Nazis. Like, they wanted the nascent. Hello Gus, bonjour, comment allez-vous mon ami Gus? C'est vraiment une belle surprise de vous voir. But as I was saying, that they wanted to have essentially the Zionist movement, right? Like Israel, essentially, ally itself. Ah, merci bien. Anyway, we can stick to English for sure. But he wanted it to ally with Nazi Germany against the British. I wish I were joking, but that is the truth. Like, you will see. Because that is like one of their most infamous things. But again, this wasn't exactly an uncommon opinion up until like the news of what happened in February 1942, the Wannsee Conference, right? Happened, right? Like
Terrorism is turning into open revolt in Palestine, and British troops and police are up against a tough proposition. With every Arab a nationalist, any apparently peaceful citizen may be carrying a bomb.
Oh my gosh, I don't mean to Hello, Devil EMS. It's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. I forget what the number was. I was reading this yesterday. I was rereading Rashid Khalidi's book, The 100 Years War on Palestine, because oh, is it? I apologize. That's my. There we go. And I forget what percentage of Palestinians were unalived in response to the Arab revolt, as it's often called, in 1936 to 1937, but it was over 10%. Like, it was quite a large percentage, if I remember correctly. And if people know the actual percentage, please do correct me. I don't want to be, I'm more than fine being incorrect, right? Like, I would want to be corrected, so.
And to catch a murderer in an oriental city is like looking for a rabbit in a well-organized world.
Abraham Stern, first of all, was a hero.
Also, like, who says stuff like that? Like that's just like the weirdest simile I've ever heard. Yitzhak Winchell? Oh. I do see, though, that they do. So you, okay. Yeah, he was a actor. I think he literally was is this more like a mime or a clown? I don't know. I guess it could be both.
He came as a student from Poland to the land of Israel in 1925 and was a brilliant student of liberal arts at the Hebrew University here on Mount Scopus. He also was a poet. This book is a book of his poems, since he was a poet. This is a book with all his poems. The first edition was in 1950.
Which one is your best poem?
The best poem is the one that I sang to you, Unknown Soldiers.
Which Unknown Soldiers is now like it's like one of like the anthems of My Jewels Keeps Disappearing Overnight. Oh no. You need to put it in like a little cage, But what was I gonna say? Because I don't think it's in this book. No, because this book is. Yeah, no, this is way too. Yeah, it's not this one. But the song Unknown Soldiers later is now like the anthem of the IDF or something like that. It's like it started off as a poem and now it's become that. So again, like, when people now try to say, oh, the Lehi, they were just a small group of people, right? They had no lasting blah blah blah. Remember that the dude that started the thing, who gave it the name the Stern Gang, wrote this poem that then became like their anthem. You know what I mean? I put it between the remote and my phone on my bed. When I wake up, the remote and phone are still there, but the jewel vanishes. Ooh, that's weird.
Because he wrote this song in the year 1932, when he was a member of the Irgun.
Oh my gosh, I swear I better not get clapped for this, because it's the Israeli national anthem, Hatikva. But whatever. Oh my gosh, Soul Life.
He came back to Jerusalem and he showed it to my mother. He sang it to her because he also invented the music. And he asked my mother, do you think that the boys will love this song? And she said, of course, it's a beautiful song. Come home. And she took notes and wrote the music. And since then, the song became the anthem of the underground movement.
It also is one of the like anthems of the Israeli, armed forces. So just like, yes, it became the anthem of the underground movement when they were underground, right? Like when they were the Palmach, blah blah blah, everything else, right? When they were the Hahagana, Ha'irgun, Ha'lechi. Yes. Now they have like performances of it with like veterans, like, you know, like kind of like in the United States, right?
You want me to sing it?
Yes.
Okay, I can. At least the 2 lines. חיילים אלמונים הננו בלי מדים.
כל החגים, ישוע משחרר רק המוות. It's a poem of a young man during the period of great ideologies and great clashes. So it became a symbol.
It's very funny how like they like to say, oh, you know, it's a song, it's for young men. It's like, do you realize what the song is saying though? Like, it's literally saying like stuff that's not good. like I don't know. There's just something about that song that doesn't seem right to me. A few things, actually. I have a few notes, but
I think a symbol for the resistance, all kind of resistance during the 1930s and 40s to the British mandate.
But definitely not the Palestinian resistance. That's for fucking sure.
And it totally expressed the devotion for having a free land.
Having a free land. A land free of what exactly? Also, I know you can't really see, but like I think you could slightly see in the earlier, just like a bit ago, that there were buildings up to the wall, right? Like there was a gap between, like this was like an alleyway. That was the Moroccan quarter that the IDF destroyed. So when they say, oh, we're trying to preserve, you know, the heritage of the Jewish people and blah 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 blah, they destroyed an entire quarter of the old city of Jerusalem just so that way they could have a plaza and do gender separation that they never did before. So a land without a people for a people without a land, as they said so, right? Like those frat songs people got backlash for when the internet found out it was just young people. Yeah, like, I'm sorry, like how Nazis pretend that interwar World War II music are just folk music. Oh yeah, I mean, like, I forget who it was. Oh, I don't know who they are. I just know that they're like some YouTube. I just saw like the title of the video and I just started listening, and they started talking about Erica, you know, that song that like people try to be like, oh, you know, it's just a song about, you know, a soldier that misses his girlfriend. I'm just like, sure, bro, sure. Yeah, when they're pretending not to be Nazis, yeah, which is actually becoming less and less of a thing these days, but you know.
In 1929, he decided to join an organization that might protect Jews, and the only organization then was the Haganah.
Oh, I hope that this mentions the weird thing. And then slip her oh my gosh. So I hope that this mentions the weird, oh gosh, if it doesn't mention it, like, I don't know if I should say it preemptively in case they don't mention it, because I don't want to say it at the end and then it kind of like, you know, doesn't but like, I kid you not, the Stern Gang legit was like, hey you, Italy, what if you, like, after they did, like, you know, their ethnic cleansing campaign against the Ethiopians and everything, right? You're like, why don't you come to Palestine and help us? You know, that they legit were willing to ask one of the Axis powers to come in and be like, can you do what Germany's doing, but this direction? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not even joking. Like, that's legit what they did. I wonder why he misses like where he is and why he is so far away from her. Probably just a business trip. Right. Yeah, just like everything else that suddenly just like invokes, like, I don't know, that just suddenly decides to just invoke things like, you know, the word Germania, for example. Like, interesting.
The Haganah was very careful in its relationship with the British Mandate authorities. Sometimes it rejected the policies, but sometimes they cooperated.
Also, you can see here that the Dome of the Rock didn't used to be the gold it is now. Vergogna. Esattamente. È la ragione che abbiamo ragione di rivoltare. But, you know. But yeah, right here. Here is the Dome of the Rock, right? And it didn't used to be gold, right? Now it is in gold. That was done by that was done in the 70s, I believe. And then right here, this tall church right here is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, and it's a very long church because here you have the well, now it's like built like a mausoleum, but it's supposed to be the cave where they buried Jesus. And then you also have Golgotha, right, the place where apparently Jesus was crucified. And so you have multiple altars that hold mass every single day. So no, ragione, not regione, ragione. Ragione means reason or the need to, like, we have the no worries. No worries. I'm just trying to. No need to apologize. Trust me. I love, you know me. You know I love talking about languages and teaching languages. So trust me. I'm not upset. Oh no. It's totally fine. It happens. Oh my gosh, hides his head as a baddie time. I'm sorry, but like when you got people over here that they're over here saying like, you know, okay, you know for a fact that there were Italians, you know, like in Pennsylvania. I don't, you know.
He spent some time there, but they didn't do.
You know what's weird, Soul Life, is that in German, what they call their private parts is they actually call it Schwamm, which means shame, which I never quite understood. Like it, you know, but it does say something, I think, about the German people, which is weird because they also invented like modern like the nudist movement.
Much. He didn't like what they're doing there.
And a group of Zionists within the Haganah believed that Britain is as much the enemy of Zionism as are the Palestinians. So if you want to create the Jewish state in Palestine, you don't only have to remove the Palestinians, you have to force the British outside of Palestine. So the first...
And remember, and I think I've mentioned this, and I know Moenop, you've read this in my article on Patreon, which, you know, you can always go to my links that just showed up in Twitch chat. If you would like to support me in some way, you can always go to Patreon, and right there, the article there, I have an article where I talk about the fact that during this time, right, that they're talking about, there were more British soldiers, right, and I will actually demonstrate via it's so funny, ban Shakespeare. I mean, you know, I probably should be. There were more British soldiers in Palestine, right, which had not a lot of people. I'll put it to you like that. Oh my goodness. Hello, Megastar. Welcome in. It's so nice to see you. And yes, there were more British soldiers in Palestine at this time than there were in all of the territory once called British India, right? So that includes Pakistan, Jammu and Kashmir, the Republic of India, right? Bangladesh and Myanmar. There were more British troops in Palestine, this tiny land between the Jordan and the Mediterranean, than this entire landmass here. Okay. Most of the big Zionist groups collaborated with the British against the Palestinians, right? So like that's another thing to keep in mind. Like, yes, at some point they did begin to attack the British as well, but it isn't as though, yes, we're also live on YouTube. Indeed. You know, those ungrateful. Oh my gosh, yeah. Like, see, the thing though is that when people say the Uganda plan, they act as though it's the modern day Uganda, right? Present day Uganda. But it would have, I believe, if I remember it correctly, and people, please do look it up. It would have included sea access. But yeah, because Herzl, back in Basel in Switzerland, he accepted this proposal, because they said, fine, then we'll just be like the Boers of, the Boers of South Africa, right? Or the French of Algeria, because that went so well for them. And it's funny because I'm pretty sure, like, it's looking like because so many Israelis have left the state of Israel since October 7th and literally are not coming back, it kind of looks like Israel's going for the Algeria ending as opposed to the South Africa ending, which I mean, yeah. And yes, if you'd like to help out with my research, you can always go to my throne as well. There's the book Nuns Navigating the Spanish Empire. But yeah.
Group that came out of the Haganah and rejected its more careful policies towards the British was the Irgun, led by Menachem Begin.
And so remember, Menachem Begin was the first Likud prime minister. Okay? And they were revisionist Zionists, I should say. And so that means that they believed in the works of Zev Jabotinsky, who said, and their symbol, right, is the symbol that often people call like Greater Israel, but it's not the Greater Israel people act like the Euphrates to the Nile. No. It's that it should include all of. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much, Omega Star. I appreciate that. Oh, you're so sweet. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really do. That is so sweet of you and of everybody that has ever donated anything to do. I really truly don't know how to thank you. Oh, that's so sweet. Shax Diak? But what was I gonna say? Oh, it called you Shake. Did it? Huh. Weird. I mean, oh yeah, always Shake. Yeah. No worries. It's totally cool. I don't see a good ending for Israel on its current trajectory. If the U.S. keeps them afloat, they lose all credibility. On the Omega's in the chat right here, or right here, right there. That's Omega Star right there. You don't. Yeah, essentially Israel is speed running South Africa. Like South Africa, I mean, what's interesting is that South Africa and Israel have been were besties from day one. Why? Because when did the official policy of apartheid begin? 1948. When did when did the state of Israel, the Israel of state, when did the state of Israel get founded? 1948. So, like, those two things run hand in hand. And there is, I forget which prime minister it was, but there was a prime minister like in the 60s, I want to say, of South Africa that actually went and said that, like, we are two brother countries, right? That, like, oh, you know, like, we understand the need for blah blah blah, right? Also, I did want to clarify one thing. Segregation is just the Latinate origin, like, that is to say, derived term for the Germanic derived term apartheid. So when people try to be all like, oh hey, you know, there's no similarity, they're literally the same word, just one of them using Latinate languages and the other one using, because it's just segregation and apartheid. Like, they both mean the same thing. YouTube is your home. But yeah, no, for sure. And like now, and what's crazy is like the people that say that, like, oh, white people somehow are disadvantaged in South Africa, which is absolutely not true. One, the fact that there are poor white people in South Africa is, they still have a far better standard of living, right? Because of racism, because of the colonial nature of everything, right? Than poor black South Africans. That's just a fact. Like, that's just. So this belief that, like, oh, after 1994 everything was corrected and now it's this, like, no, that's not what happened, right? Twitch is unserious. It's just a place for the youth to watch hot tub girls. Are you saying that I should get a hot tub? No. Oh, but anyway, I was saying the Irgun, their symbol is that all of the land that was initially supposed to be the entire mandate for Palestine, which was historical Palestine and Transjordan, right? The kingdom of Transjordan, and Palestine, which would be Cisjordan, you know. Then it would, that's what they wanted. I don't know why on earth that, you know, people, I mean, that's why you've been seeing Likud and more right-wing people showcase that symbol, right? Where it's historic Palestine, all of it, and the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, right? Which is hilarious, considering that the Jordanians are, like, known for their intense collaboration with the Zionists. You know what I mean? Hot tub party, just not at the Mr. Beast thing.
Ze'ev Jabotinsky.
Allegedly. So my father joined the Irgun, and there he understood and he started to think.
Wait, is that how they dressed? They're but, like, I'm sorry, but these pith helmets, like, to me, these are one of the, like, symbols of colonialism. You know what I mean? Like when I, like, you know, like, reading, like, storybooks, like or even things like Tarzan or Kim or whatever, right? It's like, my little brother used my mom's hot tub, but it wasn't treated yet, and he broke out in a full body rash. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's not good. That is very much not good. Don't even know what to say. Is there a particular reason for why Jordan collaborates so much with Zionism? Oh, my bad. Let me go back a little bit. So that's Jabotinsky, if you didn't know.
So my father joined the Irgun, and there he understood and he started to think that his life is going to.
So, okay, so now that you've seen that, so So one of the reasons why is because when the British, right, when they said that they were going to give Abdullah, right, who was one of the sons of the essentially the highest spiritual leader of Makkah, the kind of like guardian of Makkah, he was very close with the British, right? And so at one point, because he thought he was going to get like a big Arab kingdom, right, he was willing to negotiate with the Zionists. Oh, awesome, Bad Lefty. Good to know, good to know. And said, well, if you want to have your own state, right? And this was, again, Israel provided them water. What? No, Israel. I mean, Jordan has other rivers. It has the Yarmouk and the River Jordan. It also has its own aquifers. I don't think it's because of providing water. It's more so to do with the fact that at one time, again, like I said, King Abdullah was willing to give the Zionist a province, an autonomous province, so then that way he could get as much land as possible, including Mediterranean Sea access, right, for his kingdom, right? And, the British were not going to give him that, right? Eventually they made the mandate for Palestine a dividing line, right, which was the River Jordan, and then down all the way to what is now Al-Aqaba, right, or Al-Aqaba, which however you want to stress that. And then also it was at the end of the day, it was their decision, right? Because they also put the another family member of theirs in charge of, like, they made him king of Iraq, right, which is again formed from the British mandates that they had, right? So Jordan was always willing to collaborate with the British for this reason, and then was willing to collaborate with the Israelis because of that, right? So that is why during the and just to add one last quick thing, during the 1948 war the 1948 to 1949 war, Jordan already had said that the Zionists in Tel Aviv were saying they wanted Jordan to be neutral. The fact that there was even a chance that Jordan would have been neutral already tells you how in bed they were with one another, right? And instead, Jordan said that they would have to, join the war. But they said they would not attack past any of the areas that were not allotted to the, Arab state or the Palestinian state, right? I am hereby king of Iraq, right? Royalist sellouts. Yeah, well, yes. I hope that's not an issue, because that's not really what I'm here to discuss. I'm just discussing the history as established by multiple different historians, including Benny Morris, Ilan Pape, Rashid Khalidi. Again, the list can go on. So, in fact, that particular story is actually told at the Independence Hall in Tel Aviv. So even the most Zionist Jews say that story too. So, but again,
change. He will have to dedicate his life to fight for Israel.
The end of August 1939, just the day before the Second World War began, the British CID captured all the heads of the Irgun in a department in Tel Aviv. And a few months before, they captured the head of the Irgun, David Raziel. And also, on the same day when the German began the war, Zeev Jabotinsky decided that now the Irgun are not going to fight the British until the end of the war. And then
There is also questions whether the Jordanian army was passing on info to the Brits, by extension Israel, but that's a can of worms. Right. Well, I mean, one thing to also keep in mind is the fact that the war that started, right, in May 1948 was not caused, right, was like the war didn't start and then Palestinians were transferred, as the word would have been then. It was the Israelis had already started to depopulate villages and had already begun to do ethnic cleansing well before, in, you know, beginning even, you know, in some cases as early as February of 1948. So before they declared, you know, unilaterally independence. And that caused for all of the surrounding Arab capitals in particular to suddenly start getting, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, right, Palestinians seeking refuge because they couldn't return, right? Like, one of the things that they would do, and this is spoken about in Ilan Pappé's The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, and also in, it's even in, again, even Benny Morris's book, Righteous Victims, or the creation of the Palestinian refugee problem, which I've never been a big fan of that title, but because it kind of sounds iffy to me. But anyway, it itself is talking about that, like, they were not told to leave to go on vacation. That's just a lie. Two, you know, even in 1947, right? You already had it's called The Consultancy by Ilan Pappé in his book Lobbying for Zionism on Both Sides of the Atlantic. It was just published. The book, that's the book I have right here, and it was literally published like 2 weeks ago. And like, anyway, I'll just keep. I won't add anything to that. But it specifically speaks about how particularly in the ethnic cleansing of Palestine, that like they had already prepared, like, knowing that the Palestinians and the Arab states were going to say no to the proposal for Resolution 181, which was to, you know, partition Palestine. Then, even though they didn't accept it either, right? Like, they didn't accept the principle of the partition, right? They wanted the whole land, right? They knew that then, as they put it, like, then the borders were to be decided by other means, right? So yeah, that adds, you know, Benny even. So yeah, okay, this is far earlier. Yeah. I mean, again, can you tell me what is the best thing that has happened to the Jewish people in the last 2,000 years? Probably the overarching acceptance in many different forms of societies across the world of seeing Jews as fellow citizens, that happened over a process since the early modern period up until the present moment, which is why in many different societies. Hello, Boy Meets Mini. Welcome in. It's good to see you. Well, can I know what your answer is first? Since you say you have an answer before I answer any other questions. And are you are you anti-Zionist or Zionist, or how where do you fall, if you don't mind me asking really quick? Just because, again, you asked me a direct question about that, and I would like to know from you as well, so that way I can kind of, elaborate what needs to be elaborative. Yeah, no nation has any right to exist because they're made up authoritarian structures. I mean, oh no, it still doesn't say who said hi. Okay, well, I'll wait until you respond. I'll keep playing the video.
Abraham Stern, with some of his friends, disagree with the Jabotinsky decision, and they're going to fight the British. So Stern decided that he's going to split from the Irgun. And
so one thing to keep in mind is that when the Haganah and the Irgun decide not to go against the British in this particular time, right, when they say, okay, World War II has started, a lot of Jewish people, right, that live in Palestine, right, they end up joining the British military. I'm neutral, learning the conflict, want to find the truth. I mean, again, well, then I would highly recommend reading the books by the leading experts on the subject. Has a right to exist? I mean, I honestly don't even know how to really answer that question on some level, because again, like, the idea of a nation state is a failed project as such. Right, like, nation states do not fulfill the idea they are meant to ensconce, right? But I don't believe that that the state as it exists right now, no, like, there was no reason why there needed to be all of the propaganda campaigns, for example, against Ha-Yehudim Ha-Temanim, or the Yemenite Jews, right, who which we can actually go over that video if you want, but again, it wouldn't. Yeah, exactly what Boy Meets Mini said. Like, so, like, again, you're presuming I'm okay with everybody else. Like, no. I don't like bourgeois states in general, so I'm anti-bourgeois state. And Herzl said that the future state in the Judenstaat would be a bourgeois one. So therefore, you have my answer. So if you take it up with Theodor Herzl.
To establish his own group, which is called the Stern Group. And if you want to establish a group, you need three things. You need men, you need arms, and you need money.
So they went out robbing banks, and because they were not true professionals.
If you put a paper towel tube on a ledge and put peanut butter on the end sticking over the ledge, a rat will walk into it and it'll tip over, and you can put a trash can under it to fall into. Interesting. I don't know. I think you should definitely do some heavy reading.
People got killed, and there was a great rage from most of the Jewish population against them.
The British authorities here, and mainly the British police in Tel Aviv, they were in panic from the Lehi actions, because Lehi was killing and wounding many British soldiers, many British officers, and they thought that if they will kill Stern, the underground will die with him. So there was a...
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't think that this is not the forum for those types of discussions. I'm not trying to debate anything, right? Like, I am a historian and I work in genocide studies, and I don't think that you can go into one space, use these positions, and then go into another space and espouse the other positions. Like, that's not, so... Check it.
Hunt. It's a simple story. Two of his soldiers were injured.
I have a question, and for you, chat. I have a question. Would it be weird? Yeah. Yes. Who would it be weird? They were the most extreme. Like I was saying earlier, the Irgun, right, who gave rise to Menachem Begin, who was the first Likud prime minister, right? So Likud comes from revisionist Zionism that says that historic Palestine and Jordan should be given to the Zionists, right? That because that was originally the land allotted to the British, right? That therefore all of that should be given to the Zionists, right? Then you have Halechi that said that even during the Second World War, right, whereas the Irgun and the Hagana thought that it would be best, instead of fighting against the British, to instead fight for the British, right, and get that training, get that stuff, right. The Greater Israel Project. But I always have to make clear that it's not the one that people see where it's like it cuts half of Saudi Arabia and like up to the Euphrates, but it's definitely not including people that believe that for sure. Centrism. Yeah, Soul Life did just pop over to ban. But okay, so I was gonna ask, do you find it weird that this guy, right, this older gentleman here, who is, you know, being interviewed about, who's talking about his father, do you find it weird that in the corner of his living room, like if we go back, right? Like,
It's a simple story.
like, do we find it weird that he has a bust of his father here? I don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe it's weird to me, but like considering the complicated historical figure. Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't. Oh my gosh. There you go. Do you see it right there in the background? He has his dad's bust right there. In the corner, it's just like watching over everything. It's like every time they go back to this, I'm just like, why? we all have pictures. Yeah, pictures. Not a marble bust of our complicated historical figure father. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like I don't know. I think that's a little bit different, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Especially considering he lives in the old city of Jerusalem, you know? So which means that unless he lives in the Jewish quarter, chances are the home that he is in... You know what I mean? Like... Yeah, also weird place to put any kind of bust. Yeah, it's just like... Okay.
Two of his soldiers were injured and being treated in a Jaffa hospital. And one day, the mother of one of the injured came to visit, and she told the other one, his name was Moshe Svorei, that she wants to go and visit his wife, but she doesn't know the address. And he told her the address in Hebrew.
And Svorei's wife, in the most naive and probably not a very professional conduct, was giving shelter to Stern. And when this information was tracked down by the British intelligence, the next thing they would do was to go and see what's going on there.
The one that discovered him was...
Why do they have to word it like that? Weird, like, put it on a shelf or something, not staring at you while you're sitting on the couch. Yeah, like, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, fine. Like, people made busts of this historical figure, right? And he happens to be your father. Fine, whatever. Right? Don't put him in the corner staring over everybody. Especially when you live in such a contentious place like the old city of Jerusalem, right? Because, like, imagine walking into that person's house and you literally see the guy from the Lehi in there, right? As either, you know, like a person that, you know, I don't know. Do you think he turns the bust to face the wall before? Oh my god. So light.
An officer named Thomas Wilkin. But he didn't shoot. He called his superior, this guy, Major Morton, and Morton did the killing. My father was tied in his hands, and it was a cold-blood murder. Then they claimed that he tried to run away or something.
Again, like, I just, like... I forgot on-screen chat does that now. Oh, yeah. I mean, I need Zira to help me. I know she's super busy, but I need her to help me set it up so that it shows both streams. Because I know that Phoenix Dragon and I spoke about this. Because you know how, like, Irene is always talking about, like, creating a website. So, if we were to ever create a website, I want it so that way all the chats are just put in one. I do not want to do what the samples that we know of do, where they privilege one chat over the other, right? Like, oh, I only see the site chat, I don't see the Twitch and YouTube chat. I just want them all in one. I want to be able to respond to everybody. That's so much worse than the dog walking in. Oh my god. And I mean, and look at it. It's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
That's his last letter. This is his last letter written in the morning of his death, of the killing. He says here in this last letter that I'm not one of those who give the
See, like, I feel like Hebrew cursive, right, kind of shows the connection it has much more so to other Semitic languages than necessarily the block print, right? Like, it definitely has more of a like flowy feel to it than, although I will admit he writes certain things like they are in block script. So, like his sheens, he doesn't write them in the typical curlicue. But I'm gonna make a site that merges all the chats into one chat, Twitch and YouTube. I was gonna add shorts too, but maybe that's not such a good idea. Oh yeah, like I could never do shorts. Like I mean, just think about that. I mean, queer, trans, Jewish, Mexican, academic. It's just, oh gosh. I mean, like literally, even being like, even talking about history can get you people like that person that came in here and was like, what do you like? One, I don't have to answer your questions, and I can answer them however I want. Like,
themselves up willingly to the police or to the collaborator with her from right or from left. Meaning,
hello, Schmegly.
negative answer. I'm not leaving.
These, the first pictures permitted of Jewish refugees on their way from Cyprus to Palestine.
Yeah, exactly.
They're some of the last 750 of the December quota, and not unnaturally, the transfer, since it's now in the direction of the Promised Land, is orderly and cheerful.
I don't know, like, okay, these newsreels are always very strange to me because I always think, how do you, like, you have these camps, right, on the Isle of Cyprus, right, because it was still a British colony. Now it just owns parts of Cyprus as, like, permanent colonies that it owns, the British. It's weird to hear it say, like, how orderly it is, because then that makes me think, like, remember, like, a few streams ago where we talked about how, like, the Zionists, right, when they found out that the Jewish refugees did not want to get off in Palestine, right, that they literally shot the ship and killed, roadblocked the refugees because they were like, we would rather go to America or literally anywhere else because we don't want to, so, but to me, just like the idea of transferring people through camps, going in a certain direction, and it being orderly, they didn't seem very cheerful to me. I just gotta say.
Many had suffered great hardships in the past. She, for instance, was evidently once merely a number in some Nazi Belsen. Today, she has a future.
Aaron Stern is a romanticist, a poet, an ideologist, and in that sense, he was a very truthful figure of that era.
Abraham Stern, was he a terrorist or was he a misguided dreamer? My guess, no, I think he was a terrorist.
Unlike other Zionists, Stern did not lie to himself. He didn't say that Palestine was empty. But if you read his early writings, he describes the Palestinians as aliens, as foreigners.
Oh, wow. So, like, literally kind of like, what's his name? Donald Trump talking about, like, literally just like anybody that isn't, Anglo-Saxon, so to speak. Because, like, I've literally hearing, like, phrases like illegal alien, illegal whatever, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. That's just like, no, there's no such thing as an illegal person. 2, aliens, just no. 3, invasion, no. In fact, the United States, if anything, they are the invaders. of literally every nation on the planet. It sure seems like, but you know, I don't know. Just hearing this is like, oh, we're here now, and the people that live here, they're the foreigners. Like, what? That doesn't even make any sense.
I really believe that the Palestinians were people who did not belong in Palestine and were taking over, settling in a land that belonged only to the Jews.
Like this, like, bruh, like, Spanish descended people, right, or whatever you, like, I don't even know. Illegal immigration saved Donald Trump's life. I mean,
He did not see any attachment between the Palestinians and Palestine.
again, but that's like, that shows you the ideology thing, right? Like, that shows you how ideology, right, which naturalizes itself, right? Like, this is the problem with liberalism and capitalism, right? Which is, you know, liberalism is the political formation of capitalism, right? Like, is that they, or a political expression of capitalism, I should say, is that it views itself as not ideology, right? That it's the putting on the glasses like Johnny Nada, right? Or whatever. But it's not, right? Like, it's not actually outside of ideology. It's just that it naturalizes itself very well, right? In fact, there's a book, I can't remember right now, but it's called like Capitalism and the Laws of Nature or something like that, where it's like capitalism is so ingrained in how we think, right, that like even how people describe scientific things or artistic things is like, we have no other language but capitalist language to describe it, so then it becomes naturalized, right? Like, oh, you do this so as to invest blah blah blah, right? Like, he invested time, right? Like, this thing invests itself into blah 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 blah, right? And it's like, you know, or like, oh, it's receiving dividends, like, oh, the artist is receiving dividends by experimenting with blah blah blah, you know what I mean? Like, it's this really weird thing where like nothing we do exists without it, right? It's just, you're my gosh. Oy vey. Breaking news, a man carrying a excitable device Robloxed in Tel Aviv. Hello, Damal. Welcome in. Welcome in.
He saw himself as a real anti-imperialist person.
Oh my gosh. He saw himself as an anti-imperialist, bruh. Mr. Sternelli, you know? Mr. Sternelli. I just gotta say, Mr. Sternelli. I read your poems 4 times.
He likened himself to the anti-imperialist movements in Africa and India.
Oh, India? What the? No! Oy vey. Oh. Oh no. Oh no. I gotta get out the fan for this one. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Energy Flow. In fact, we even have a ace flag emote too. I'm sorry, like I don't remember, like, I don't know, I just gotta be like, excuse me, like, what are you doing? Like, Mr. Divorcelli, like like wow, imagine, like, we are the liberation fighters. Bruh, no. Mr. Stinelli, Mr. Stinelli, you don't understand. You don't understand. Oh god, this is too.
And the most bizarre thing is not how he saw the British. Okay, the British were an empire, but how he saw the Palestinians as part of the British Empire, which was
What? They're part of the British Empire. Oh my gosh. So this, Mr. Stinelli, I've got to tell you, the Palestinians were not a British imperial plot. Okay, you've got to stop watching that that infracell stuff. Okay, my goodness. I have no idea. I am just like, excuse me, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, no. Ah, yes. The British plot of the Palestinians. Bro, you gotta go outside, okay? Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, this dude, whatever he was doing indoors, he needed to go outside. Like, and for... yeah. Because, he upholds two-hole theory, of course.
totally distortion of history, of the reality, but that was his world.
He wanted to fight the British in order to gain independence. Stern, in his utter naivety, believed he could form an alliance with Hitler against the British.
Y'all heard that right. And also, if you'd like to help out my research, you can always go to my throne and always donate there. I appreciate anything people can give. But hello, full of nicks. Welcome in. It's the same feeling of listening to the anti-Semitic form of Great Replacement discourse. Yeah. Yes. You're not wrong. Is this about Palestine? Yes, it is. It's talking about how the Zionists legit were like, hey, why don't we ally ourselves with Adolf Hitler? You know? That's where we're at this point. But, apparently me caring about the Palestinians is too far for trolls coming in this chat. Like, I'm gonna go back. Like,
he wanted to fight the British in order to gain independence. Stern, in his utter naivety, believed he could form an alliance with Hitler against the British.
Hold on a second.
I don't believe it was naivete. I'm sorry. That is not naivete. Okay. You just can't middle of the road this topic when you have something like this going on. And remember, they're gonna say, oh, but he was extreme, bro. The Haganah, like the other, like the regular Zionists, quote unquote, they invited Adolf Eichmann in 1937 to come visit Palestine. If it wasn't for the British deporting him when he was hiking up Mount Carmel, right? Like, and knowing that the next time Eichmann would be brought to that land, right, would be literally to be tried for organizing and perpetrating the Holocaust against, like, that's why the Zionists could find copies of, well, in Hebrew. Oh, I haven't seen any of that. I have seen their ones where they happen to be in Arabic or something, but it's like, how many bookstores are there functioning bookstores were there in Gaza? Right? And there was one where I legit saw it have no dust around it. Like, it was pristine. I'm like, okay, everything else around it is covered in rubble and dust. But the book isn't. I don't know. I definitely recommend reading Eichmann in Jerusalem because look, Hannah Arendt is Hannah Arendt, right? But the information she gives, like, in terms of, because she's critical of the Zionist movement, In fact, she was one of the first people to be critical of the Zionist movement that was like a big scholar, right? The stuff that she reveals in there, combined with, like, say if you were to read Ilan Pape's, you know, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine, Rashid Khalidi's, you know, who is she? She was a philosopher. Actually, interestingly enough, she was a student of Heidegger, you know, who joined the Nazi party, and never left the party. Like, he literally was a member until the party was outlawed in Germany. So he technically never left the party. He had like a love affair with her, technically speaking, but anyway, I'm not going to get into that. But yeah, he was like, she studied philosophy under Heidegger, was really big on talking about lots of things. She wrote on authoritarianism, stuff like that. Was very much of that like European Western Marxist tradition, right? And then moved to New York, right? And then began to teach and work at the New School. And that's where that's around the time when she starts writing, because at the time of the Eichmann trial, and this doesn't really happen anymore, right, is that it wasn't just news people. In fact, the first time that there's actually a movie about this called The Eichmann Show, is that the first time that you ever have cameras in the courtroom, like it had to all be done for the first time for that courtroom at the Beit HaMishpat BeYerushalayim, the Hall of Justice or the House of Justice in Jerusalem, right, where they were trying him, because of the fact that people didn't want to see the cameras, they didn't want to affect the audience, right? So that's where they have the now we find it so common, right? But back then it wasn't, right? Because you had the big ass cameras. She was one of the many philosophers that stayed for the entire trial, because the trial goes on forever, because they had so much testimony, and they also had to provide for him a defense, right? They had to provide for him a defense, and that was another thing, is like he had to be given. So she was writing. There were other philosophers that went there, and now we really don't do this, right? Like, we really don't see philosophers going to major court cases, right? Like, which we should, in my opinion. Like, I wish that idea of like the intellectual who, puts that type of thought into such things were still a thing that we did. But yeah, so she writes about Eichmann, gives the sort of backstory, but also is very critical of the state of Israel, right? Like because they technically broke international law, right? They drugged him in Argentina, right? And then illegally brought him over to Israel, right? They kidnapped him, right? I mean, like, they didn't do extradition and blah, 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 blah. No, they went there and broke the law and stuff like that. Oh, hugs. We did take all. Not at all shocking. Was that the root of splitting off the Stern Gang? Yeah. I mean, the thing is that the Stern Gang did not want to stop fighting the British, right? They were like, if the British are at war, that means that they're weaker, right? Like, now they're moving all of their troops away from Palestine, right? Right? I mean, technically speaking, yeah, that's correct, right? And remember, this is at the time when, again, there were more British troops in Palestine than all of British India, which includes Pakistan, Jammu and Kashmir, India itself, Bangladesh, and Myanmar. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a huge landmass. Right? Was it pragmatic decision to support the wrong team, thinking the Germans could win? It was literally, can we get weapons from them, right? Like, essentially it was, we want the British gone, right? Then the Germans will support us with, oh, Twitchy Smeggly, hello, welcome in. Then being able to join as like a third front, right? So there wasn't just like the European theater and I guess the Asian, the Pacific theater, because the North African theater hadn't really. Well, I guess it would have started by then, but anyway, right? To like open up now, like the Middle Eastern theater, right? And to then use it as an excuse, because remember, the ethnic cleansing of Palestine requires war, right? Like that's the reason why they keep calling it a war in Gaza, right? Because that is used as justification for the war crimes. Oh, it was done during a war, right? That's the reason why all of the Indian wars, as the Americans like to call them so much, right? They were not wars. I mean, because they were asymmetrical by definition. So when you have these things, being called wars, right? It's done so that then they are justified, right? In their view. And so, but the idea of a war, right? Of war going on is this. I mean, it's the same thing with Germany, right? It could not have done the Holocaust had it not been for the war, right? It could not have moved troops in that way. It could not have had the peoples of all of the all of the countries in the Axis, or that were allied with the Axis, right, being willing to do everything that they were willing to do, et cetera, right? Because it was wartime, right? Like that's what allowed for the construction of, that's what allowed for the war economy that process of extermination required, right? So, Hamas bookstores. Probably idealistic rendition. I'm wrestling people to spread. Oh my gosh. I don't know where I've been, Lou. You don't know where I've been. I hate to say it, but honestly, like considering Latin American justice almost justified. Like I kind of wish the British hadn't hand Pinochet back here. Yeah.
I'll tell you exactly what happened. Yes, he did think that if he will find an agreement with the Nazis, he could save Jews. He wanted to make an agreement with the Nazis so that the Nazis will send or let the Jews from Europe come here to Israel.
And this is important to keep in mind, is that like what I was saying before, right? Like after 1942, after Wannsee, right? Not that there weren't, the mass murder of Jews already happening, right? On the Eastern Front, right? Not that there weren't already concentration camps, but there were other solutions prior to the final one, right? One of them was mass expulsion. Something that the United States actually did against Mexicans, regardless of whether they were citizens or not, in the 1930s. Which is why the 1930s to 1940s is called the decade of betrayal for Mexican Americans, right? Their thought, because people talk about the Madagascar plan, which was whatever, but some of the Zionists did think like, hey, well, right, we want to colonize this place as quickly as possible and remove the inhabitants or transfer them, right? Why don't you transfer the Jews to us? Right. And for a while, there was a belief that could have happened. I personally, from what I've read, I don't know if it was ever going to be plausible. If only because it's a lot, right? I mean, you're moving at least 6 million, right, people. Well, it would have been more, but you know what I mean, right? At least it would have been millions of people, moving them down to the ports of southern Europe and then moving them over. Oh my goodness. Zach, thank you so much for the raid. I appreciate it. Welcome in, everyone. I'm Shakespeare. Or Shakespeare, whichever you prefer. I am a cultural historian in Jewish and Latin American history, and also work in genocide studies. And we're currently talking about the Stern Gang, which was one of the most radical paramilitary groups in the... Yes, thank you so much for that. Zio, I appreciate that. If you would like to follow, please do. I would appreciate it. Make sure to refresh, that way you get counted as being in the chat. And get nice and cozy. We're talking about the Stern Gang and their weird alliance. We talk about relevant majors for this point in time. I mean, I honestly, like, when I entered genocide studies, right, like, I never expected that, like, I would have to be like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not something you, like, go into expecting to be like, I mean, you know, like, seeing live streams of, you know, but it is what it is, you know, like, in the sense of, you know, all the research that I've had done hitherto, right, has been used in particularly my article series, which is talking about the history of Zionism in Palestine. But yes, thank you so much. If one of the mods in here would please make sure to shout out Zach. And again, thank you so much, Zach. I really appreciate the raid, and I hope you had a good stream. Shakespeare won't let me raid on Twitch. You can raid. In fact, I think his name was Robert Paulson. Huh? Hello, Milton Kitano. Oh, that's weird. Okay. There we go. Make sure to follow Zach App if you're not already. Zach App is always up early in the morning. Well, at least for me, being in LA, always learning, and I very much enjoy that. Obviously, you're under quarantine still. Oh no. Shakespeare's no. I don't want to raid. I want to shout out, not raid. Yeah, it's far too. Wasn't the word Nakba forbidden until Nakba? He knew she blew a oh my god.
Be safe, and in addition, the Lehi will help the Germans by fighting the British. So he wrote a suggestion.
Right, so that was the exchange, right? So they would help the Nazis by fighting the British in the Middle East, and Germany would send, to put it, you know, would transfer Jewish people from Poland and the other areas it conquered south to ports like Thessaloniki, Trieste, etc., right? And then have them be awayed to Palestine, right? Of course, that depended on German supremacy in the naval sense, right, in the Mediterranean, which this is the reason why I don't think it could have really happened, because again, you had Cyprus as a base, you had Egypt, right? You had, like, there were too many parts of, you know, of British power, of British control, that were very close, right? So one, for them to get German weaponry, or for them to get German funds, or for them to get, right, it would have been very messy. So Oh my God.
And he sent a messenger to Beirut in Lebanon to the German embassy. And the messenger gave this letter and this offer to the German ambassador in Beirut. And that was the end of it. He never got any answer, no reaction, no nothing. This is the end, the beginning and the end of the collaboration with the Nazis.
Like, can you imagine being like the German like ambassador in Lebanon at the time, which was under French control, right? Which I'm thinking, if this would have been in what, 41, 42, or yeah, 41, 42, 40. Yeah, it would have had to have been after 40 for sure. Like, that was not, I mean, that, I don't know. I don't know what to say, because I think that was technically not under Vichy control anyway, so, but I don't know.
It was a very naive way of thinking because the Germans never answered it.
I mean, they didn't have to. You know what I mean? It was naive in the fact that he thought he was going to get an answer. I mean, knowing what this guy did and his whole like career, right, post 1920. I mean, come on, Avlam. Like, come on.
This naive attempt was never evolved. There was never any kind of...
Oh, on YouTube I can't raid. On Twitch you should be able to raid. I don't.
Cooperation. There were some strange dreams of fighting together the mutual enemy. Nothing serious could have come out of it.
I'm going to hand you some document that...
Well, so life. I understand why people might say that, but I would hesitate to say that it is a causal, you know what I mean? Like, definitely after the fact, because of what happened, a lot of people who before were more critical, I'll put it like that, right, had their criticism, they put it away in a drawer, you know what I mean? But that's weird. I'll have to check that out then.
That your dad did cooperate with the Nazis.
Yeah. To call it naive seems a little naive to me. Like, I don't know any better, but who knows? No, I mean, like, okay, you're telling me this person that was able to like start his own paramilitary group that was literally a faction split off of a faction split, right? So like that literally thought that the Haganah and the Irgun, right, were too centrist for them. They're like, we need real, that we're like, and what we should do is we should ally with Adolf Hitler. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, that isn't something like even, to be able to control this group, and to be able to be such a thorn in the British side at this time. I mean, it's not, I think to me saying it's naivete is kind of like, I don't know. It kind of feeds into the narrative that like, oh, all what he really wanted was just to be free, right? You know what I mean? Yeah, and a minor. My mic is speaking. Oh, I'm so sorry. Here, let me put it right over here. My apologies for that. But thank you so much, Bounce House 42.
And did he have a knowledge that the Nazi was treating the Jews very badly in Europe?
These are protocols of an interrogation made by Haganah people, the main Yishuv establishment, to a young man that was part of the Stern people. And they asked him what were the ideas of making some kind of apply to Germany. It was never a cooperation. That's false.
So it says here, Stern confronted us with questions. We answered him. If there are, quote, if there are countries that will give us weapons, they will be Germany and Italy, and they persecute Jews. He replied, this being Stern, in, quote, in war, there is no place for sentiment. We'll work with whoever gives us weapons and money, end quote. Stern also said, most Jews work with the English. Why don't we make a deal with a country that is hostile to England, and if it wins, that will be good. Oh no, oh no, that's do you remember when we talked to you about approaching the Axis countries? Oh, God. Well, remember, they didn't just approach Germany. They also approached Italy, right? Because Italy, when it did its second Ethiopian war, essentially the Dahia doctrine that Israel employs, I kid you not, comes from Italy's the second Italo-Ethiopian war, because they did the exact same thing where they would destroy like churches or whatever, blah blah blah. Like literally comes from Mussolini's handbook, because that's what they did then. We will engage with any military power that can help us establish the kingdom of Israel. Wait, let me look at the Hebrew. I have to see this. Let's see. Yeah, Hamelchut Israel, right there. Kingdom of Israel. Even if it is Germany. Whoa, that is just bad. Not the state. Not the state of Israel. The kingdom of Israel. Our condition is to get weapons and riot against the English. I agree to join Stern based on this. Bro. Oh, yeah, We are willing to work with any power. We are ready to work with any power that is willing to help us take control of this land. You know, it's funny because, like, in this way, right? They also have to admit, right, that that the land isn't theirs, right? Like, because, you know, by asking for help from Germany, right, willing to sell, you know, to sell their souls, so to speak, right, to, you know, probably one of the people that some people would say is like, you know, a close approximation to a devil, I suppose. I asked about a year ago, and this failed us because Germany preferred the Arab force over us. Oh my gosh! Imagine Germany's like, nah, I don't, bruh. He doesn't like. He's not gonna fuck you. I'm sorry, Abraham. Like, I just gotta say it. He doesn't like Jewish people. Like, he doesn't care. I don't know. It's just. Oh my gosh, getting mogged by the Arab force, but in the worst of ways.
One of them was tortured very strongly, Ephraim Zekler, by the British. And I think that under torture, he told them whatever they wanted to hear. And the other one, Polanyi.
I hate to say this, but the ONH-IRB took the weapons from the Kaiser's Germany during World War I, but that's not 1940s Germany. Yeah, I mean, I'm still freaked out by the fact that he has a bust of his complicated historical figure father. This is the son of that man, the one that's like, we should make an alliance with Hitler. This is his son, just so we're clear, right? But he has a weird bust of his father's, you know,
He's a guy that was in the leadership of Lehi, And once the British put on the walls of all the streets in Tel Aviv pictures of wanted leaders of the Lehi, my father was, they wanted to pay for him 1,000.
Wow, let's see here. Rewards as set below will be paid by the government of Palestine. The Palestine Police Force, eh? Did they ever plan on making an aristocracy for the Kingdom of Israel? You know what? At this point, I'm pretty sure that they did. Oh yeah, ACAB is ACAB, but I just find this hilarious because, like, you know how like a lot of Zionist rhetoric is based on this idea, like there was never an entity named Palestine before, and it's like here we literally have something saying the government of Palestine. Bet those cops had British accents. Yeah. Oh gosh, imagine hearing them trying to pronounce like Hebrew and Arabic words in very thick British accents, like, we're going to go to the store, but it's over there on what's the name of that street again? Oh yeah, it's Ahosh Veirosh Street, you know, like
Sterling, which was a huge sum of money there, he ran to a kibbutz called Ma'aleh HaMisha.
Oh, never mind. Imagine being this Aharon Zuckerman, only 200 pounds. Yaakov Polani, 400 pounds, Palestine pounds. But he gets 1,000. Oh yeah, the British accent doesn't work without the vowels. I mean, for sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, if you're trying to say Ohosh Veirosh, I mean, if you extend them like that, I guess, but it also depends whether you're doing a southern or a northern, right? Because in northern England, they would say cat, or they would say they would say grass, right? But if you go to southern England, they say grass, right?
Far from Jerusalem, he had friends there, and he was hiding there. And there, he told them whatever they wanted to hear. But there's no legs to this lie. I mean, as I told you, the only collaboration was with this ambassador in Beirut. Came out with nothing. And also, Stern couldn't know about the Holocaust because the
Okay, this is the contentious part right here. So Deborah Lipstadt, who, look, you know, she is obviously pro-Israel, right? Like, that's just a thing. But in her book Beyond Belief, she talks about that even we failed, so no harm, no foul. Yeah, that's pretty much what he's saying. Again, it's like, yeah, my sussy ass father, you know, he just wrote this letter that was like, hey, I'm willing to make an alliance to make not the state of Israel, the kingdom. I wonder who he wanted to be the king of Israel. I can only wonder, of course, because I'm sure he didn't, you know, pretty sure, you know. But Deborah Lipstadt wrote a book, or Kaiser, I mean, there is a place, in the discussion I had with Katie the other day, right, the premier, that was saying, you know, Caesarea, right? There is a city. In fact, it's the city that Benjamin Netanyahu lives in, or Bugsy Netanyahu. Bugsy Netanyahu lives in Caesarea, right, which was named after, you know, or Caesarea, some people will say. So yes, definitely, Caesarea, Kaiser, is definitely, you know, in the. In fact, that's how the word Caesar itself is said in Hebrew, Kaiser. So, yeah, Caesarea, yeah, Caesarea. And so in her book, she explains that people knew what was going on in 1933 because they didn't go after the Jewish people first, right? They weren't the first victims, right? The first victims were the disabled and political prisoners, right? So like communists, for example, because Dachau was opened in 33. So, hello, Carla. Welcome in. Welcome in. Him, the guy in the interview, would have been the Prince of Israel, right? Does Bugsy have a Caesar complex? I think so. If he's over here, like, yeah, I'm gonna, because he asked Germany to be in an alliance, and I don't know if this goes into it, but he also asks Italy to essentially do like what it did to Ethiopia, right? But for them, like, oh, we'll pay you to do the colonizing for us, right? Like, yeah, trade unionists, right? Exactly. So in her book Beyond Belief, right, she looks at newspapers even well within the interior of the United States, again, well before, social media and everything, right? And it talks about how, like, even newspapers in, like, St. Louis, right, Cincinnati, right, like, Topeka, Kansas, right, like, they talked about the Holocaust going on, right? They knew about the concentration camps. So if some person out there in the middle of, like, Omaha, Nebraska can open up his newspaper, right? The Omaha, the Omaha Star or whatever it's called. Then, this idea that, like, oh, he had no idea what was going on when the British are still occupying Palestine and fighting against Germany is a bit of a, and also when there are Jewish refugees trying to make it to Palestine, right, that are actively trying to go there, it seems a little, I don't know, far-fetched to me that, like, oh, they had no idea. Land fucking back. Oh yeah, for sure, trust me, I am 1000% with you, Bounce House 42. Settler colonialism, not even once, never, like, all forms of settler colonialism, all the land has to be given back, every single square micrometer. Like, I don't care. Outsourcing colonialism, well, I mean, the reason why is because, like, they didn't have the thinking was, we don't have an army, right? Like, we're just like, we're just like a, it's like, what if Alt Hist and his like YouTube chat, right? It's like, that was them at the time, and then okay, maybe that's not a good example, but you know what I mean.
Wannsee Convention, where all the Nazi leadership conferred and decided about the final solution for the Jews, was in 20...
Which, again, the final solution was the final solution, right? Die Endlösung des Judenfrage, right? Like, he wasn't bothered by the other solutions for the Jewish people. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of... Like, you know what I mean? Like, everything else was okay with it for him? Like, I don't know.
Of January 1942. Stern was killed on February 12th, 1942, 3 weeks later. He was then under hunt. He was living in parks, in shelters. He didn't know anything about what's going on in Europe, not about the Wannsee Convention, and not...
Okay. He didn't know about anything that was going on in Europe. I mean, okay. I don't know if I believe that. That's a little, that to me, that part is a stretch. Like, I get that maybe he doesn't want his dad to seem that bad. Maybe, like, I get it. Like, your father's already, had, was already kind of reviled for a while, especially because, he was particularly named a tourist, right, by the British government. But I just feel like saying, oh, he had no idea what's going on in Europe when you are, in a part of the colonized world, right, where much of the people who will end up fighting World War II for the British, most of them being from the subcontinent, are passing through every single day, right? Like, and also people from there, from Palestine, and from Jordan, and from, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of doesn't make sense. for it to be like, sure, he might have been down and out of his luck, but to say that like he knew nothing, I mean, he obviously knew enough to write the letter to, the ambassador. But if they're gonna say, well, he was destitute at the end, again, I don't know. I think it's trying to just, I don't know.
About the extermination of Jews, he couldn't know.
And again, there already were executions happening on the Eastern Front, and that was reported in the Soviet press, that was reported in the British press, that was reported in the American press. So this isn't, and it was reported in the press of the places that were not occupied by Germany hitherto. So this is why I really hesitate, especially again if you read Deborah Lipstadt's book Beyond Belief, right, where she particularly focuses on America. It's like they knew stuff was going on very early, but if they want to focus on Wannsee and say like only after that could people have known about, I don't know. I hesitate.
He definitely knew that Jews already for 7 years or 8 years before were under a very racist legal regime that boycotted the Jewish businesses. The Jews were thrown out of universities, civil service.
Well, I mean, I agree with Ilan very much so. Yeah, I have it on Twitch and on YouTube. I just need to find a way to unite the chats, but I need help with that. I don't know how to do it. And hello, my dogs are goth. One other thing to remember is that in the Einsatzgruppen, yeah, we're very publicly known. Like, that's the thing, is like, he can't be like, because, okay, then, okay, I'll say what's kind of like in the back of my mind while I'm hearing this. Then why did he send the letter, right, talking about transferring populations, right? Why even bring that up, right? It's not about, allowing them to immigrate to Palestine, right? It's about, we'll fight on your side and you will essentially send us the Jews you don't want. I mean, right? Isn't that kind of the implication? Right? Because of the solutions, quote unquote, prior to the final one? I do? Oh, that was supposed to be for tomorrow. My bad. Oh, well. That was my mistake. Also, I didn't know I was going to stream today. I wasn't sure, so that's why I have a problem believing this, right? Like, that he had no idea, that he was completely clueless. Like, there was so much evidence already existing that even the British knew, that even the Soviets knew, even the Americans knew, and they're way over there on the other side of the Atlantic, Yeah, I was not expecting to. I was like if I would have just had the premiere, then I would just be talking to y'all in chat, but
this was a few years.
Oh yeah. Also, in 1935, right, when the Nuremberg laws were fully put into place, right, the Nuremberg race laws, that's when Jews lost their citizenship. They became stateless. That's why a lot of people wanted to emigrate to Palestine, right? So again, like, it doesn't add up in my mind that he's like, I have no idea what's going on in Germany. Like, especially because the process of Aryanization started in 1933 and kept going, and after 1935 just became more intensified, right? And then you have Kristallnacht, right, in 1938. And the process of Aryanization is where Jewish businesses would be essentially stolen, right, from Jewish owners and be given to German people, right? I doubt that's all life, but
after the Kristallnacht, when Jewish synagogues were burned hundreds of Jews were killed in pogroms. He knew very well about this Nazi.
Yeah, he did. Exactly, Ilan. Exactly, Ken. He knew because this was already after Kristallnacht. It was already after 1939. It was already after all these things had already happened, like putting people in ghettos. You know what I mean? Like all these massacres, etc., etc. Like, there is no way that he's like, oh, he's just complete, you know, like, oh, he's just some himbo, you know, like, no.
Incitement to their own society. I don't think he knew about extermination camps and so on, but he definitely knew that the Nazis were using very cruel anti-Semitic means.
Oh, I didn't think you meant it like that, Soul Life. I thought you meant it like, you know, like spontaneity, you know, like in the moment, you know, type of thing. Not like that.
To force the Jews outside of Germany. But, you know, forcing the Jews out of Germany for Stern was something that he wanted to happen anyway.
Exactly. So he, like, this is the part that contradicts the, like, he didn't know. Yes, he did know because he wanted them to be kicked out. So then that way they could be sent to Palestine. Yeah, I misinterpreted that really badly. Because I did not think you meant it like that. I thought you meant it like, you know, like morning, you know, relations. Morning Congress.
Haganah and the mainstream Zionists, and even Egun realised you had to wait for the defeat of the Nazis before you could then take on the British. It was a question of tactics. It wasn't a question of principle. So the idea that you negotiate...
I don't know. I don't like that answer. It was a question of tactics, not a question of principle. I mean, surely you can. Surely the two are connected.
The Nazis, of course, was acceptable. In 1933, they negotiated Havarah, the transfer agreement, a trade agreement with the Nazis that broke the Jewish boycott of Nazi Germany. So again, there was no difference in principle.
Exactly. They also did that. Remember, we cannot forget that they did the Hava agreement where they literally broke the worldwide Jewish boycott of Germany because they knew what was going on in Germany and were willing to let particularly wealthy people, right, come to Palestine, and in exchange they would have to purchase certain things directly from Germany, right? Like there was a monetary exchange, right? Yeah.
Cool, but tactically, you could say Stern was again impatient. He couldn't wait. He couldn't see that sometimes you can't do everything at once.
In Rome, a Nazi flag flies and a wreath is laid at the tomb of the Italian unknown soldier. 500 members of the so-called Hitler Youth march past in demonstration of the newly established accord between Germany and Italy. And
oh my gosh, so like...
Who takes the salute? Don't tell me, I shall recognize him presently. A significant visit. Germany and Italy, Nazis and fascists draw together.
Many of the Zionist leaders, not only Abraham Stern, went through this famous maxim, my enemy's enemy is my friend. And some of them, and again, not only the Stern gang, were also very nationalist in a way. Even Ben-Gurion
as Hannah Arendt writes in the book Eichmann in Jerusalem, the reason why Hitler was willing to work with the Zionists was because, quote, they too thought in national terms, end quote. So, yes, this, like, could we say that Zionism is a form of ultranationalism akin to, possibly have some relation to, fascism? It could be argued, for sure.
Still in 36, 37, we're quite fascinated by fascism as an ideology.
I wonder why. I wonder why the Zionists would be interested in fascism as an ideology.
Stern totally disregarded the anti-Jewish side of fascism. He was so focused on trying to build an alliance against the British that he was only thinking about this maxim, the enemies are my enemies, my friends. So in 1940, he tries to, first of all, to meet the fascists from Italy.
Okay, so this is 1940. This is like the war has started. Italy's done the Pact of Steel, right? That's already a thing. You've probably I think this is after the conquest of France, right? So I don't know.
They made an kind of an agreement, which is called the Jerusalem Agreement,
The Jerusalem Agreement. Oh no, here we go.
made by the Stern Group, which said that he is going to be one side, and Italia will be the other side.
He agreed to recognize the Italian fascists as being the sovereign power in most of the region, while the Italian...
Most of the region. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. They were like, actually, Britain doesn't own all of this. Italy does. And of course, the Italians being, you know, like, oh, we're going to revive Rome. Of course, they were like... Yeah.
Fascists would recognize Stern as and Lehi as the sole sovereign power in historic Palestine. But one of the most interesting parts of the agreement was that it required the Italian fascists to use their military power to dissolve what they referred to as the Jewish diaspora, meaning that...
Oh yeah, that's right, that's right. Okay, from just what you heard, right? It sounds exactly like what it is. Use your military to get rid of the Jewish diaspora. Just think about what that means. Just really think about it. Like, again, everything was based around the idea is like, we have to get as many Jewish people here as possible. As long as we can get as many people here as possible, that's all that matters. Blah, 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 right?
Stern wanted the fascist military to forcibly remove Jews who were not in Palestine and make them go to Palestine. The problem was that, unbeknownst to Stern, these messages had been intercepted by his rivals at the Irgun. And for a while, he was actually communicating, unbeknownst to him, with the Irgun rather than...
Oh my gosh, he got catfished by the Irgun! Oh my gosh. Oh, they were having a steamy telegraphing sesh. And it turns out the in-video volume is low? Really?
With the Italian fascists.
Another step by the Irgun to show that Stern was a gangster, was a quisling, was a traitor.
I would like to say that the first one to cooperate with the Nazis was Haj Amin al-Husseini in 1936, much time before World War II.
Yeah, they got him on 4K. That's just... Wow. I'm just thinking about it, because I'm thinking about... Because we only know what they said, so he's thinking, oh, you know, he's talking to like a hunky, you know, like Italian, you know, all tanned and everything. Mike is way scuffed now? Oh no. Oh no. Oh, I think I know why that is.
He knew that Hitler is fighting against the British. And Haj Amin al-Husseini didn't like the British because they kicked him out of Palestine. From the Jewish point of view, it was like he was a traitor, like that he met Hitler. As I
What I was going to say was that, thank you everybody, was that for the focus on al-Husseini is always wrong because the power that was given to him by the British, right? They elevated the power he had because the British, just like in India, and if Boy Meets Minnie is still in here, right? Can speak to, at least in some regard, right, when it comes to obviously the caste system in India, is like it represents, right, it represents how the British wanted it to work, right, in terms of collaborators, right, and everything like that. And so that's why, like, the Brahmin, right, have this position that they do, even though, like, the caste system was already in terminal decline before the British reinstated it. And the way in which they reinstated it was thus that, it functions how it does now, right? Like, they essentially made it suit their colonial purposes. Same thing with Haj Amin al-Husseini, right? The power that this figure had as the Mufti of Jerusalem was never as powerful as it's portrayed now, because it wasn't until the British Mandate that they raised him to a higher position, right? That is to say, they gave the position more power, right? So that's the problem, right? That's why, when Zionists focus on this and say, oh, he met blah, 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 it doesn't matter. I mean, when you had the Zionists, palling around with Eichmann, right, inviting him to Palestine in 1937, and then you had, Abraham, right, sending letters to, the German ambassador, right, saying that they would, ally themselves with Nazi Germany. But we have to be very clear here that, when you have collaborators, the system that is left in place by the colonizing power, right, is there to benefit the colonizing power, right? And even if they are no longer colonizing it, right, the systems that they leave in place, right, are there to perpetuate the comprador bourgeoisie in particular, right? That is why, Mexico, even though we technically abolished the Sistema de las Castas, right, our own caste system that existed in the Americas because of Spain, right, it still exists where people who are of European heritage, who are white, right, are almost entirely the bourgeoisie of the country and of all the countries in Latin America. So, yeah. So that's just something to keep in mind.
I think now he do it from his own point of view, from his own will. There was no Arab state, and as I said before, it wasn't only him. Many people tried to meet Hitler, see what happened with the Vatican, with the Pope. The Shemite are Jews and
I like how he says that with the Pope. I like that.
Arabs as well. So to tell him that it was against the Jews in Palestine, I think, because it was afraid that if we will have Jews in Palestine, it wasn't be good for the Arabs in Palestine. It's nothing to do with anti-Semitic.
I'm glad that he put it this way, right? That it wasn't him being anti-Semitic, right? The issue has never been with the Palestinian people that, yes, we love Palestinians here, and we, in fact, I know this works on Twitch. I don't know if you do Palestine, it will say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I mean, I have a white kufiyah here, and then below it is a gray one. And then my Palestinian flag kufiyah is also right here. And I've had that one for ages. Like, I got it when I was in the Middle East, because it's from Hirbawi, from the last kufiyah maker in Palestine. I got it when I was in Jordan. But anyway, as I was saying, it wasn't a question of Jewish people living in Palestine. That has never been the issue. Even Layla Khaled, even etc. The issue has never been that. For Zionists, the issue has been Palestinians living in Palestine, right? For Palestinians, it has never been an issue of Jewish people living in Palestine. It's always been a question of the fact that the relationship between the two communities, right, was one of settler colonialism, right, one of ethnic cleansing, and now one of genocide, right? And so that is at the heart of the issue. So the Mufti going to the power, right, at the imperialist power that was against the British. And, now in retrospect, right, we can say this was probably a bad move, whatever, fine. Again, personally, I do not believe that, in fact, I think I have it here also as a command. We cannot tell an oppressed people how to go about their liberation. We don't. And I would never seek to. Like historians might, think about it and write about it, right, and critique it in an academic sense, right? It's not about land or religion, right? It's about land, not religion, right? Like, that's why all of the things that are like, oh, this has been going on for 2,000, it has not been going on for 2,000 years. Jewish people have been living there since time immemorial. Many of them then converted to Christianity, and then lived there for the next 700 years until then it became, part of the Umayyad Caliphate. Well, first the Rashidun, and then the Umayyad Caliphate. And many of the people there that then, intermarried, etc., many of them converted to Islam, etc., as well as, peoples moving back and forth, because again, it's literally at a point where 3 continents meet, the mid, like that, like the Levant, right? Like, there's always people going back and forth, so this belief that that it was about any particular people living in the land, it was never has been about that. So instead, what it's always been is this belief that if you have a mass importation of Jewish people, particularly knowing that there is this ideology out there called Zionism that says that not only do they have exclusive rights to the land, but that they go so far as to deny the Palestinians their own rights in the land that they are indigenous to, then, and having a complicit imperialist power like Britain, right, might lead people to choose to, at the very least, consider speaking to an opposing imperialist power. I mean, it's not the first, that's ever happened. Egypt did very similar things with the United States and the Soviet Union. So, hello, Narwhal. Like a Palestinian. Oh, yeah. don't we see the Christians all bound head off shelf over you don't see well, I will say one thing, and that is that because of Ateret Kohanim, which is one of the organizations that expropriates illegally, like in fact I remember a case very well where a family went to a wedding, and particularly if you're from the global south, this probably is more likely to be the case. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen in the global north, right? Yeah, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre would beg to differ, yeah. Or the Church of or the Church of the Nativity, or the Church of the oh gosh. Yeah. But definitely the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, that's for sure. But Ateret Kohanim has actually been, and there's actually a movement against this. The Armenian quarter, which is the smallest of the 4 remaining quarters, as I mentioned before, there used to be a Moroccan quarter, and the IDF after 1967 demolished it. So, and they said they gave a warning, but I mean, I don't want to get into the gruesome details. There are reports that there were people that were still in their homes. I can't speak anything more than to what I have read about that subject, and it was not very conclusive. It was just testimony, right, from people. But again, it wouldn't be the first time. So but point being that they destroyed one of the ancient quarters, the Moroccan quarter, so that way they could make an open air plaza for the Western Wall. And that had never been that way before. It used to be like the back of an alley, essentially. And now it's kind of like a big plaza with gender separation, which never happened before either. Closer to 200. Wait, what? But Armenian Christians are getting upset because they are being bought out, or but in a predatory way, right? Like particularly like during the pandemic and its aftermath, right, when people were very much like a lot of people were down and out of their luck, etc., right? Their businesses failed, etc. Many of these predatory Zionist organizations would go out and buy from under them, right, the building that they lived in, right, in the Armenian quarter. And it's the smallest of the quarters remaining in the old city of Jerusalem, and they've been slowly Israelizing it, right? Like buying more and more and more property there, and so and destroying property there too to build new stuff. Which is why the contention by the Israelis that they're there to preserve, right, the history of the old city doesn't make any sense to me, because they destroyed the Moroccan quarter and now they're destroying parts of the Armenian quarter. So, so I don't know about that. But I don't know. If there is a strike, Canada's going on strike. Oh, interesting. Awesome. Some people are saying, well, in the West Bank, the IOF call that a pressure cooker. Oh, yeah. 200 as opposed to 2,000-year-old. Yeah, I mean, the 1880s is when Jewish Zionism begins. Because as Ilan Pape notes, Zionism actually began first as a Christian thing. Then it became a Jewish thing, right? That's the thing that, like, if we don't acknowledge its origins being initially Christian, then that's where a lot of the anti-Semitism sometimes, like the actual anti-Semitism, right, tends to come out, right? Not the anti-Zionism, but the actual, So yeah. No. This is Ilan Pape's book where he talks about lobbying for Zionism on both sides of the Atlantic. It was just published. He talks about this. Like the first, I'll read the first sentence if people don't mind, right? Yeah, Christian Zionism for Israel, exactly. Zionism began as an evangelical Christian concept and later an active project. It appeared as a religious appeal to the faithful, both to aid and be prepared for the, quote, return of the Jews, end quote, to Palestine, and the establishment of a Jewish state there as the fulfillment of God's will. But soon after, the Christians involved in this campaign politicized this, quote, theology of return, end quote, once they realized that a similar notion had begun to emerge among European Jews, who despaired of finding a solution to the never-ending anti-Semitism on the continent. The Christian desire to see a Jewish Palestine coincided with the similar Jewish vision in the late 19th century. Right? So it started off as a Christian thing, and then they saw the Jewish people wanted reprieve from anti-Semitism. And so that's where you see the desire for liberation, right? And their desire to, this dispensationalist theology, right, to then be brought about. So, and so, it'll spark the second time.
That was a really great mistake, absolutely. But whereas it's understandable for the Mufti to have taken that position, for a so-called Jewish movement to have taken it, knowing full well that the Nazis had come to power on an anti-Jewish program, and with Hitler had said that in the event of war, the Jews would be annihilated in Europe, it was utter madness. It was treason of the first order.
The British authorities here, and mainly the British police in Tel Aviv, thought that once they killed him, that's the end of the terrorist organization called
My bad. Sorry. I'm trying to work with the sound so that way it's louder when Al Jazeera or this is going on and less so when I'm speaking. It's weird that they are saying if we get rid of this one dude, then everything will fall apart, right? And saying how that's wrong, right, when it comes to this Jewish movement, right, or this, pardon me, Zionist movement, right? The Lehi, right? Which it didn't. It in fact it inspired the armed settler movement we have now, right? That has never worked. And yet the IDF and the Israelis are literally functioning under this idea that you can if you remove what happened with Ismail Haniyeh, right, in Tehran, right, now you have Sinwar, right, as both the head of the military wing and the political wing of Hamas, right? So, you know what? Maybe you can install a browser plugin extension to address the audio volume. I used to use one that let you make a tab 200 plus volume. I guess I will have to do that because I am maxed out on everything. So
Lehi. Of course they were wrong.
From Haifa come pictures showing the result of the recent outrage that shattered the brief lull in terrorist activity. The incident was caused by a man, believed by some to be one of the Stern gang this time, driving a stolen van full of explosives to quarters where it blew up. 2 British and 2 Arab policemen were killed, and others are reported missing. More than 60 police, soldiers and civilians were injured.
The 3 people who took over from him, I think they were much more organized than he was and much more systematic in what they did. Yes, part of what they did was a revenge, but part of what they did was understanding that actually attacking British installation, assassinating British officers, intimidating Jews who were not aggressive enough in their hands, or what they would call collaborated with the British, was a terror campaign that was far better organized, I think, under
Sorry about that. Hello, the Kievit. I am doing okay. I could be doing much better. I've been having to get operations done, and so I am very much exhausted and everything, and all these other things that have been going on. But besides that, I'm fine. But I hope that you're doing well, and I hope that your research is doing well.
The three people that took over from Stern.
Violent actions that
By the way, Yitzhak Shamir became an Israeli prime minister, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, thank you so much, the Kievit. I really appreciate that.
took life, both Jews and British.
So, I mean, like, to say that, oh, yeah, we got rid of the ideology. Well, later on, Yitzhak Shamir becomes the prime minister of Israel. So what are you going to do about that? Like,
Then the decision was very strict. We must hunt down those people. And if we can't do that ourselves, we're going to hand them over to the British to deal with.
I think what is important to understand in the relationship between the Irgun and Stern Gang after 43 is that they have a new enemy. Not only Britain, not only the Palestinians, but also the Haganah. The Haganah.
oh, gosh, this is just reading about history, about the Vikings, and started to find my infatuation with the Byzantine Empire again. Oh, awesome, awesome. Have you looked into the I guess the diplomatic relationship in which it had the Byzantine Empire with the Khazar Khaganate? I've always found that fascinating because at one point they were willing to support a pretender to the throne and then change sides to, I don't know. It's really interesting. But yes, if you'd like to help my research, you can always go to my throne. There, the link is there. More than welcome to. We're currently 24% funded on this book, Nuns Navigating the Spanish Empire.
Begins a campaign of trying to undermine the power of the Irgun and the Stern Gang. In Zionist historiography, this period is called the saison, the French word for the period, and also the hunting period.
It was mainly done by the Haganah and people from the Palmach. And as far as I know, they didn't give so many people to the British, but they stopped the terror.
Yes, and I said thank you so very much, Omega Star. I truly appreciate you and everything that all of you have, so kindly, generously given. I always feel so undeserving of your generosity, and I'm just ever thankful. Right, yeah. Oh yeah, it just showed the Via Dolorosa, which is where on Easter time, that's when you see people. I mean, I've never been there, obviously, but oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Same here. Rail work is rough. Conductors and engineers usually bounce around 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there, on call here. Oh, I see. The Via Dolorosa is where like the stages of the cross occurred, right? Stations of the cross, pardon me. So you have little like altars, like little mini altars, like built into the stone for each one of the different stations of the cross. And like on Palm Sunday and all that stuff, right? People will walk along the Via Dolorosa. Some people are on their knees, and they go on their knees from the beginning of the Via Dolorosa all the way to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. which is in the Christian quarter. The Via Dolorosa begins in the Muslim quarter. And that is where, it is believed that Jesus, was walking with, bearing his cross. So the passion of the Christ. Which is, a very anti-Semitic movie, but, I get why Biden didn't let the rail strike happen here. It would have been horrible, inflation 10 times worse, but the railroads are... Oh, yeah, for sure.
רוב הבריחות היו מפחד.
Yeah, I looked at... here, let me transition here. I looked at Sviatoslav against Bulgaria. Eventually, he got betrayed by the Byzantines when he got too powerful and took land. It's very interested geopolitics, since they seem to swap until Atel and other cities got destroyed to balance it with the Bulgarians. Well, like, what I always find very interesting is looking at the history of the Bulgarians when they go from being like old Bulgaria, right, for like Bulgar, the Bulgars, right, when they're more in the Volga River area, right, hence the name Bulgars, right, and then migrate west into where they are now, right, because some people like to claim that there's like some connection there between some of the Iranic peoples, like the Alans and other such things, hence why they use the red, white, and green, which like Iran, Kurdistan, right, like other Iranic peoples use as their flags. I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but maybe. Let's see here. Okay. Oh, thank you so much. Not sure about that connection. Have not looked that up. I speak quite a few. I speak more than 10 languages. So... Yeah, I just like as a kid I always love learning different languages. Like many of them are self-taught. Like I never really took like French. That's completely self-taught. In fact, like when I was in college and I had to take language classes, right, because it was a requirement, I tested into the highest classes they offered, because they were just like, oh, you don't even have to, so that was all, and I did live there, also as well, so that helped. But yeah, and in fact, like in my premiere yesterday, I was like reading the Hebrew, speaking in Hebrew, and this, when I was reading in Hebrew, trying to make sure that they translated their words correctly. So Oh, thank you so much, Omega Star. That's so sweet of you. Okay, so I am getting a little tired, as people might be able to see, and hungry. So I'm going to go. 10 is insane. Yeah, I will admit it's might be a little bit more than 10, but I just love learning languages. And in fact, I would translate from Old English / or what is called Anglo-Saxon to modern English. Like I've done that too. Like I've well, again, I like to do that. Like that's what I like to do, and I like to talk to people. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Norwal. Thank you, Monop. So we're gonna raid out, or we're gonna go to Talorx. Talorx for stream. Thank you so much, Bounce House. Thank you so much, Efe. Everybody, please get into the machine and make sure to tell Talworks hello. And I hope that he's doing well. And I will see you all very soon. Thank you, Cuban. I appreciate it. Bye, everyone. Thank you.